webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to show you and your colleagues in the company how you can get the most out of Rx-360. We want to find the right way for you to become engaged and help drive this responsive organization to fill the company needs. Let's move to the introduction of our speakers. I'm Lou Kontnick, and I'm a Director of Operations Risk Management with Amgen. I'm the chair of the communications team, and today we have on the line Brian Johnson, Senior Director with Pfizer and Chairman of Rx-360, Guy Velox, CEO of Hovion and Vice Chair of Rx-360, Janice Berman, Vice President of Quality Assurance for Takeda, and working with the new regions that you'll hear more about. And then Ben Mills, my colleague here at Amgen, who is a supplier quality audit lead here and audit operations group lead for Rx-360. Let's go to our housekeeping slides. And I think that everybody knows, let's see, there we go. Please take a moment and go ahead and enter your audio PIN as shown here. And that will enable you to participate later on during the question and answer. And I want to note that today's presentation is being recorded. It will be available later on. So thank you for working with the housekeeping here. Let's go to the next slide. So we are very much interested in your questions and issues and responses. So please feel free, as you see here on the slide, to go ahead on an ongoing basis and enter any questions or comments that you have, and we'll engage with those later. Then at the end of the presentation, we'll have a question and answer session, and you can raise your hand electronically, and we'll take those questions. So I think that is the housekeeping matters, and Brian, I'd like to hand it over to you to go ahead and give us an introduction to our organization.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's exciting to be participating in this webinar. I understand last count we had over 150 people participating, and that was a while ago, so I'm hoping the numbers are over 200. And I think that really shows engagement from our member companies. The agenda is basically structured to accomplish a couple things. Number one, we want to make sure that we educate all of you who are on the call who may not be as close to the organization on the organization structure. And at the end of the day, the real objective is to identify opportunities for you to engage or to engage members from your company. So we're going to be going through a little bit of the structure of the organization. We'll be going through working groups, and as we go through the working groups, listen carefully. If there's working groups that are of interest to you, there's an opportunity for engagement. We'll be covering some things that you can do to directly engage or engage others in your company. And at the end of the day, I want to throw out the first challenge, which is I would like everyone on the line, as we go through this presentation, to think of an opportunity or two. You're going to hear a lot of information, but if we could get everyone on the line to think about, hey, here's something I think would be interesting to my company to engage through Rx-360, we'll have a win here. So that's your first challenge. Next slide, please. So let me start off with one of the things that we're going to do is a few of us are going to talk about what Rx-360 means to our companies. And I realize that Rx-360 is different things to different companies. To some companies, Rx-360 or some people on the line it may be, you may perceive Rx-360 as a third-party auditing organization. Others who have been primarily focused on supply chain security may view Rx-360 as a supply chain security organization. Others who have really engaged in information and intelligence sharing may view Rx-360 as an intelligence mechanism. So we have a lot to offer, and we add different value to different companies by design. So I wanted to share with you how Pfizer is using Rx-360 just to give one company's view on what we get out of the organization. And at the end of the day, what you get out of the organization is what you put into the organization. So when I think of Rx-360 and when Pfizer thinks of Rx-360, we really look at Rx-360 as providing operational value. This is not an educational group. This is not a personal development group. This is an organization that drives real value operationally for Pfizer. In the space that we're working in, individual companies can't do some of these things on their own. So Rx-360 is actually part of our strategy on dealing with supply chain security and collaborating with other companies, organizations, law enforcement, etc. So key part of our strategy, it's not a nice to have, it's a really essential element of how we accomplish supply chain security at Pfizer. So I listed a few examples, and I won't go through all of these, of very real tangible work efforts that we've engaged in as a company. So if you remember the Fukushima issue in Japan with the tsunami, Rx-360 mobilized a working group on that, and that was an excellent, very value-oriented working group targeted at a real issue happening at the time. We're currently working with a group that's focused on Italy and solving some of the cargo theft problems that many companies are having. Again, we can't solve it alone as a company. Rx-360 is a mechanism to engage. Many people were aware of the, out of the FM, Falsified Medicines Directive, the API importation requirements. We kicked off a group to align and work with regulators on what that meant. We're currently working with the FDA on their supply chain security pilot program in the U.S. We're currently working in a group that is driving GDPs in Africa. So these are all very tangible work efforts that go to Pfizer's bottom line. And that's how we sort of see Rx-360. We benefit from all the different offerings. Now, in terms of participation, we threw up some numbers here just to sort of, I guess, make the point that you get out what you put in. And Pfizer has participated in 15 separate work groups, some of them I previously mentioned. We've led or co-led 7 of the work groups. We've had 13 individuals involved in, 13 different individuals involved in the work groups. And a number of the work groups that we led or co-led were actually promoted and pitched to the organization by Pfizer based on a real need. So really it's driving, it's solving issues that our companies are faced with. And I suspect that if anybody in Pfizer is trying to figure out how to solve, say, the notification issue with DQSA, I guarantee there's 30 other companies out there that are thinking the same thing. And by putting together a work group on a contemporary issue, we all benefit. So that's sort of Pfizer's view of how we use Rx-360. Next slide. So I'm going to go through a few slides here really quickly on background. So I think everyone who's on the line is probably aware of our mission. It really is around patient safety and improving the integrity of the supply chain. Next slide. So in terms of strategy for Rx-360, we have 5 main strategies, which you're probably very, very aware of, but you may only be engaging in 1 or 2 of these. So one of them is best practices. So all of the work groups that I mentioned in my examples ended up with, being a benchmarking best practice development exercise, followed up with a white paper, and has really done wonders in driving, supply chain integrity on a global basis. I gave an example of bringing industry experts together to respond to immediate issues in the supply chain, like the Japan situation. Rx-360 also has an intelligence and a communication strategy around making sure that we're sharing information that's threatening our supply chains on a global basis. We have a program for joint auditing, which is really targeted at providing companies the ability to have better transparency to their supply chains by outsourcing low-risk audits and allowing them to focus internal resources on higher risk audits. And then the last strategy is around technological development. Next slide. So this just talks about the structure of Rx-360, and really the bullet that I want to point out here is we are a nonprofit, but we are volunteer-based. So we have infrastructure through the Secretariat, Drinker, Biddle, and Reed, but 90% of the work that's being done is being done by volunteers, and thus the reason for the webinar today to really ask for your engagement. Again, we're going to drive what we put our resources towards. Next slide. So this is just a bit of the organizational structure. We have a board of directors. They're 3-year terms, and the board of directors, develops strategies and aligns on priorities and working efforts. We have a chair, which I was privileged to serve the last 2 years, and we have a vice chair, and both he and myself are on the call. And the key bullet on this one is the last one, which is members can place representatives on any working groups or committees and can propose creation of groups or work streams for board consideration. So this is basically saying what we do is driven by member companies, and it's driven by recommendations from a company that has an issue that they want to solve collaboratively, and they pitch it to the board or the oversight committee. That's how we get things done. That's how issues surface to the top. And again, hopefully everyone will come away with 1 or 2 opportunities from this call. Next slide, please. So this is the organization chart. I really don't want to spend much time on this other than to indicate we do have a board of directors. We have what's called an oversight committee, which is a subset of the board that handles a lot of the operations in between board meetings on behalf of the board. I've mentioned the audit operations group on the left, the supply chain security working groups. I mentioned some examples there. You're going to hear about some of the work we're doing in new regions. I've talked about communications and outreach, and the focused industry initiatives with the supplier working group and medical devices. I think you're going to hear about in a little bit. So all of these work groups, we're going to go into a little bit more detail with the goal of, again, educating and arming you with the knowledge of what the organization is working on now so that you can engage. Next slide. So this is the actual names of the board of directors, and just to give you an idea of who's on the board, what companies are represented, and who's on the oversight committee. So with that, I think I have gone through my slides, and I'm going to hand it off to Janice.
Great. Thanks, Brian. So I'm Janice Berman from Takeda, and as Brian did, I'd like to just inform you of some of the benefit that Takeda has obtained from our membership and participation in Rx-360. I echo a lot of what Brian said in his for Pfizer, that of course the operational value, first and foremost, we know how much our own employees are benefiting from the professional development and the networking that is going on at the working team. These working teams are diverse groups of industry experts, and putting our own experts on these teams has really benefited them and Takeda. Our own supply chain security experts have additionally recognized, as Brian called it, that we can't do this alone. We call it that force multiplier, that working together, that we can get so much more done, whether it's creating the white papers or simply just raising the bar in the industry regarding the practices around supply chain security. Our own Takeda strategies are influenced by Rx-360. Again, the supply chain security strategies that we have as a company, we know that by aligning with many of the activities and recommendations in Rx-360 that we're addressing current risks and that we're in fact remaining consistent with the best practices in the industry. I don't have on this slide, of course, the information or the true benefit that we received during the crisis with the tsunami and the subsequent radiation issues in Japan, but of course that was very critical to many of us and my own colleagues here in Takeda. So we also have participated in a number of the working teams. I've listed a few of our experts who have worked on these working teams. And the way that we've engaged at Takeda, I'm still on the prior slide, but just finishing, but the way we've engaged at Takeda is really reviewing much of the output of Rx-360, whether it's the white papers, whether it's some of the audit checklists that are available on the website. We share those at many of our global and local meetings at Takeda. So if you can go on to the next slide. Brian referred to so many of the benefits from Pfizer and naming a number of the work groups that we've had. So the board of directors is where we set strategy. However, the real work and the real action really takes place at the working groups. The forum, this is the forum that of course the groups use to share their own company best practices, and where the experts really drive the agendas, they drive the topics, they decide on the objectives for the working group, and of course, most importantly, they deliver on those objectives. We know that we're all getting free networking and free consulting, as we call it, by participating in these groups. And again, since we do have our experts on the working teams, we know that there's a lot of passion, and we get participation from truly everyone on the teams, and we expect participation from everyone on these teams. Every working group is chaired, of course, facilitated by a leader, and that leader reports into the board. Every working group has a liaison into the communications team so that we all stay connected. And of course, most of the teams are, of course, held by telephone conference because we've got global participants, and we try to have teams meet face-to-face at least once a year. Next slide. I'd like to tell you about one of our newest working teams, and it's one that I'm chairing, and I have a co-lead from China, Xiao from AstraZeneca. This, again, being one of our newest teams, and in fact, our first team that we've organized across the geography rather than a topic. So you'll hear about many other working teams through the call, but again, as we've realized some of the important other areas of the world that we needed to reach out to, we've decided to organize some of these teams across geography. This Asia working group really has started in China, and we have a very vibrant network of regional and global companies that are participating in our China working group. We in fact have a number of sub-teams that are working at, as sub-teams to our audit, to our supply chain security, and to our membership teams. And these local teams are now adapting and reviewing some of the current Rx-360 workstream outputs and adapting and evolving some of the outputs or creating appropriate outputs to be used in the region. As we continue to grow and gain confidence in the region, we know that we will start influencing the regional regulatory groups and regulatory activities. We've had a lot of exposure so far through a number of meetings, CPHI, a number of 2 open meetings that we've held in China, and a lot of good press already with the startup of this team in China. Next slide. Before I hand it over to my colleagues, I just want to review again some additional information regarding working groups and the engagement in their companies, and give it a bit of a timeline perspective of what these working groups have accomplished. So this is the actual deliverables in just a high level, but from our young start of just 5 years, from 2010 till today, in our short 5-year history as our startup organization, what we've been able to deliver. So of course the flash reports are have started delivering in 2010 and just continue every year. The crisis with the Fukushima activity, we've piloted and moved quite far along on our audit activities. The white papers published by the supply chain security team started coming out in 2012 and continue to come out from that team. We've broadened into upstream supply chain security issues, and as I said, we've moved into geographic groups, and now moving into medical device and serialization activities that we know our members are all involved in. So you'll hear about more from these teams and listen up to many more deliverables that the teams have provided. So with that timeline overview, you'll hear more from some of the sub-teams, and Guy, I'll hand it over to you. Hi, Guy, are you on mute? Hello, Guy.
I mean,
Here he comes.
can you hear me now?
Yes,
We
we
can
can.
hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Janice listed what had been achieved since 2010, and I'm going to wear the hat of chair in the coming years. So just to tell you what we expect to have happening as from 2015, and this is very much expanding into new geographies. And you take India. India is such a hugely important producer for the world of medicines and APIs that we have to be present there. So that is very much a goal. The other goal is also to have more membership in the generics industry. To tell you what has Hovyon gotten out of all this, first it's important for everyone to realize Hovyon is a supplier of APIs. So unlike the previous speakers, there are in the membership of Rx-360 not just pharmaceutical companies. You have API producers, you have contract manufacturers of finished dosage form, you have producers of devices, producers of chemicals. So it's a very large forum. I think for most people, the benefits are all to do with the development of people, with providing this unique opportunity to discuss with peers the same issues and to hear the different points of views between clients and suppliers. I think with 7 Hovyon team members joining the various groups, working groups of Rx-360, we gained an incredibly better understanding of what our risks are, what our clients want, what patients need. This was very much the benefit of understanding the perspective of the people that buy our APIs, what were their concerns with supply chain. We also contributed and benefited from best practices. This came in the shape of, auditing standards that were probably either not well established or widely available. And Rx-360 developed auditing standards for chromatography resins, for chemicals. And Rx-360 doesn't always just come up with new standards. We also adopt standards. So we adopted for excipients, the audit standard of Exipact. Overall, the great benefit is the interchange of ideas, the opportunity that Rx-360 working group membership gives people of developing in their functions. And we do all this at no cost. So there's a lot of benefit operationally for a company of the supplier base to participate in this. If we go to slide 18, you have, in this case, this is a slide that describes the medical device working group, and the chairs Matt Anderson from MERS and Michelle McDonald from GE. This is a new working group. This came into existence because current members of Rx-360 had businesses that went beyond pharmaceuticals, and they had businesses, activities in medical devices, and they decided that they wanted to create a working group in this area that would, on the one hand, benefit from the methodology of Rx-360, from the work that had been done for pharmaceuticals, in order to serve the medical devices. So we're now also looking towards having new members that are pure medical device companies. And in Washington in last June, when we were at an event that celebrated our 5th anniversary, Janet Woodcock of the FDA actually thought that the scope expansion was really very welcome. Another example of working group that I could give you is the following slide, 19. The supplier-led working group, where the chairs are Gary Perkins from Sigma Aldrich and Rick Calabrese from Sartorius. This is a working group just for suppliers. We felt that it was important to create a forum where suppliers could discuss with each other what should Rx-360 do to add value to their companies. What, given the opportunity of this huge forum that everybody joins, what would suppliers really gain benefit from? And we focused on 3 things. One, as a supplier, we're probably a bit frustrated with the vast number of supplier assessment questionnaires we get from all our clients, because it's a necessary item of the vendor qualification program, and everybody pretty much asks the same questions, but they all ask them in a different format with different emphasis. And it's very frustrating for suppliers because they have to start from scratch with every questionnaire. So we've actually come up with the standard template There are actually 5 different templates depending on what you're supplying. And we are pushing that all members of Rx-360 start using the standard questionnaire, standard format, so it becomes far easier for suppliers to respond quickly to clients. This is done, and we've had some webinars on this. If you click into our website, you can download all these questionnaires. It's actually very well done. I wasn't involved, but it was very well done. This working group did a splendid job. The next one we're doing is we're looking around to the existing template quality agreements that various associations have issued, and we'll probably adopt one of them. And it will be a recommendation from Rx-360 that this should be used. The next one we're doing is around change control. We want to come up with a template, a simple template for suppliers to use when they want to notify change, and then clients can use the same template to approve the proposed change. This may sound very basic, but this is very important. And if we can standardize this kind of thing across the industry, I think there's enormous benefit to be gained by everybody. Move to the next slide, slide 20. I wanted now to tell you about this group we have called Observers Liaison. And this is chaired by Fritz Holz from Merck KG. And what we've done with this group is welcome observers into Rx-360. We currently have 18 different observers from associations, whether they're industry, trade, patient associations, and we also have other stakeholders. For instance, FDA is an observer, especially in the area of supply chain security. We have also as observers 13 third-party audit organizations, and we hold a quarterly telephone conference with all the observers to keep them informed on what we're doing, probably even get their input on the kind of things we're considering, and we want their points of views and contributions. So this is, I think, also illustrates how Rx-360 is more than anything else a very open organization. We welcome all kinds of members, providing they are part of the pharma supply chain. We also welcome the stakeholders, the observers, and we're very transparent, and we offer. We give things away. We don't ask for, we don't demand. Next slide, slide 21. The working group on monitoring and reporting is a wonderful benefit that all members get from Rx-360. It really, I mean, every one of our organizations has groups that pick up information, pick up new regulations, pick up new laws. You know, for instance, the new GMP guidelines in China or the ones in Brazil, and everybody races to translate them and generate an executive summary. Well, this group of monitoring and reporting actually does this job incredibly well. This group is put together by the collaboration of regulatory, quality, professional groups that in their organizations are responsible for this job, but they work collaboratively and they do this work very, very quickly. Whenever there are developments in policy or regulatory or legislation, they generate summaries very quickly. For instance, the FDA UDI final rule, there were PICS guide on GDP, there was an EMA guidance on qualified persons, GMP declarations on APIs, and they transform this raw data into an executive summary, into a training PowerPoint, and they get it out to members of Rx-360 almost faster than the internal organization of members can do this. So this is a great benefit. If you haven't already gotten access to this, I think you should, because this is a very good service that Rx-360 provides. I think I've come to the end of my slides. Over to you, Lou.
Terrific. Thank you. Yeah, so from Amgen's point of view, the benefits that we see really come in a variety of different areas. At the heart of it, though, really is knowledge sharing. Different functions within Amgen have benefited from the collaborative work of Rx-360. In the supply chain security area, the group began with an overall framework that is available on the website that really set the tone for how we analyze in a holistic way the requirements for supply chain security. And then the group went on to go ahead and develop best practices in the area of theft management, brand protection, anti-diversion, so on and so forth. You've already heard a little bit about the supplier quality and the upstream supply chain security responsiveness and work. Audits, we use Rx-360 to do a number of our audits to leverage cost and enhance quality and transparency. There are many, many different benefits. The formal benchmarking and the white papers are a critical piece because they are, they're, as they say, benchmarks that we can use to go ahead and really look at how we're implementing our own systems. But it's also the one-on-one connections that people build in working on the working teams that gives a basis for our professionals here in Amgen to reach out to other professionals having established a relationship around the issues of joint interest. Another area that is very valuable from our point of view is the constructive interactions with regulators. Rx-360, as Guy said, is really not a lobbying organization. Really, the positioning between companies and regulators that we've observed in the Rx-360 environment is a much more collaborative information sharing. And with that collaboration or that information sharing comes better understanding and we think and hope better regulation and more effective collaboration. In terms of our participation in Rx-360, we've really taken a strategic alignment approach. That is that our senior leadership, and most notably Martin Van Trieste, one of the founders, has occupied a leadership position in relation to the board really since the founding. At the director and the executive director or senior director level, many of us lead different working groups and are active in different working groups. And at the managerial level, we ask many of the managers from different technical areas to become involved in the working groups to build their expertise and contacts. In terms of engagement, it's really built into a lot of the company management that we have. Again, our senior leadership sets the tone to encourage involvement. Our SMEs, our subject matter experts, are expected really to use and to participate in Rx-360 working groups in order to ensure that they really do have a broad look at what's going on. And we often include Rx-360 participation as part of the development goals and in annual reviews. Let's go to the next slide, the supply chain security group, which is led by Tim Valco here at Amgen and Rob Welsh from VWR. And the supply chain security is an example of really how Rx-360 has been responsive to the needs of its membership. As I said, we began the supply chain security with a comprehensive management mapping, which is out there on the website for people's use. And it has then cascaded into a number of benchmarking white papers, cargo theft, illegal diversion, shortages, so on and so forth. Then more recently, as members said, well, we want to expand into the upstream supply chain security, that work stream was added. In April, a very detailed white paper was put out on the website, again available for your use, and we held a conference here at Amgen, which was a tremendous learning and networking experience. The work that the supply chain security group has done is now being leveraged in that kind of force multiplier effect to go ahead and augment the work that's being done in Asia, Africa, and with the medical device team. And it's been mentioned briefly earlier, new issues keep surfacing. The most recent example being the question of how companies can effectively create serialization traceability operating systems to meet the diverse global requirements. And so just in the past month, there was the announcement of the formation of the Traceability Data Exchange Architecture Working Group, led by Lloyd Mager of AbbVie, Peggy Staver, Pfizer, and Brian Resac from Activist. And so they're creating, or that group is creating models for interactive interoperability for compliance. And as part of the Rx-360 kind of get it done project management, execution, and delivery, we expect really to have those conceptual models available for debate by the end of the year. If you're at all interested, come and join that group. Going to the next slide, I can talk just briefly about the communications committee that I chair. We've got a tremendous team. It formed in 2013 and began with a situation analysis for communications, identifying where our strengths and weaknesses are. We created a plan in 2013 that was approved by the board, and wouldn't you know it, one of the key opportunities we identified was to go ahead and create better education and empowerment of members about what all 360 does and how you can use it. And so here you see us actually executing on that particular goal. The communications plan is made up of quality volunteers with communications backgrounds, and we're very much interested in having others volunteer and step up and join us. In addition to this webinar, our other goals for 2014 were to launch a switchboard newsletter that would really communicate all of the work that's being done in the different work groups into our internal and external audiences. We've completed 2 of those, and they're available on the website. And if you're signed up, you will get those automatically. We're also working to support other work groups in their communication challenges. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and hand it over to Ben Mills to talk about the audits.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ben Mills, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Audit Operation Group, along with Robin Kumului, who is a VP of Novartis. And what we wanted to do today was just give you a little bit of background around the Audit Operation Group, what we're responsible for, and what some of our accomplishments for the year to date have been. So, as has been stated earlier, the audit portion of Rx-360 sometimes tends to be what most people think about when they think about Rx-360, if indeed they utilize Rx-360 for audits. So we have a very large, not very large, but maybe 15 to 20 people on the team who actually are folks who either have responsibility for the audit programs within their companies, or are actually the ones who have that operation within their organization at a particular company. It's important to state again that we're not made up solely of manufacturers. We have a large number of suppliers who sit on the audit operation group as well, and that's important because when we think about audits, we need to think about both sides of that equation. So certainly from a manufacturing point of view, we have regulations that stipulate that audits need to be conducted and performed on a regularly determined schedule. However, also on the supplier side, they're facing the ever greater number of requests that they receive on a yearly basis to have audits performed by their clients. So what the Audit Operation Group tries to do is manage the audit operation services that are offered through our joint audit program. So through the joint audit program, we offer joint audits where multiple sponsors can get involved in a single audit. We have shared audit programs where members can share audits that they've performed with the supplier's approval. And then we also have a licensed element as well where membership can license already conducted audits and take those into their organizations. We're happy to announce that this year we signed a partnership with BSI, British Standards Institute, who will be our main audit provider for the Rx-360 group. If you're not familiar with BSI, they're an internationally known company, a nonprofit like Rx-360, and they do a fantastic job, so we're looking forward to getting that launched very soon. Other things that we've done this year is we've launched a brand new database, and there are webinars that are offered through Rx-360 if you're interested in that database, but basically what we've done is we've improved greatly on the way that membership can request audits and track audits to completion. So that's something that we've worked hard on this year, and I think it's a fantastic benefit to membership. And we're also looking at expansion of audits into good distribution practices and also into the Asia region as well. So next slide, please. Another committee that is out there is the Membership Committee. As the title might infer to you, the Membership Committee is in charge of looking and seeing how we can increase membership, because certainly increased membership brings a benefit to all. So the Membership Committee is led by Linda Evans-O'Connor of TIVA, and some of the accomplishments this year is that they've developed a member toolkit so that when new members come into Rx-360, they have a way to access all the different programs, services, and information that's available to them. They publish a quarterly newsletter that is available to Rx-360 memberships, and also host quite a number of seminars, webinars, and that type of thing throughout the year, again with kind of the goal to bringing new people into Rx-360 to increase the leverage that Rx-360 has as an organization. Next slide, please. When we look at membership, and speaking about the membership committee, we're looking at membership that includes all these various characteristics. Certainly Rx-360 is a global organization that is comprised of companies both large and small, be they suppliers or manufacturers, be they branded or generic. Regulatory agencies as well as standard-setting bodies and industry organizations participate as observers. And again, as was mentioned earlier, this is all with the goal of ensuring that the information, the work that's done by Rx-360 is applicable to the greatest number of folks who can actually provide benefit to the Rx-360 organization. Next slide, please. So currently, this is, if we go back, this is a list of members, and I would just point out that you can see we have a large number of manufacturers and suppliers who are members. And then under the observers column, you'll see that we have various auditor organizations who act as observers, and then various associations. So right now, this is a very large list, but we're always looking to again, get more folks into the fold. And if anybody on the call is interested, if they're not members or if they know about other companies that might like to become members, simply reach out to Rx-360 through the website and they can take advantage of that. Next slide, please. So the steps to becoming an active audit member, number one, I think, is many people have mentioned when they speak to how they utilize Rx-360 within their organization, is to really analyze your company interests. What aspects of Rx-360 might you feel would be important or that you could lend a voice to within your company? Learn about those specific working groups. So right now I'll put in a pitch for the audit operations group. Let's say you're somebody within an organization who manages or is in some way involved with supplier audits, or you host audits by manufacturers within your company if you're a supplier. If there's a good fit there, we welcome new members all the time. All the working groups do, because we're looking again at a broad base of new information and ensuring that we involve all aspects of any particular topic for which we have a working group dedicated. decide which working group your company might contribute to, and then it's simply a matter of just reaching out to Rx-360 and expressing your interest in being on that working group, and it's as easy as that. You'll be involved, you'll be invited to the meetings and the discussions and that type of thing, and all of this can be done through contacting the Secretariat, and you'll see on the slide there's a web link for that. So we would encourage active participation by all members. Not only is it a great way to enhance Rx-360, but also it brings a lot of value into your organizations, as you've heard. Next slide, please. Some key communication tools that are available to you. I've mentioned earlier the Rx-360 website, and there's a link at the top. That is kind of your one-stop shop for all things that are Rx-360, be they flash reports, alerts, any kind of information around the audit programs and that type of thing as well. Bottom left-hand corner of your screen is our new logo for the Audits Plus database. I spoke to this earlier, but this really is a fantastic database. Members have permissions granted to them so they can get into this database. They can enter suppliers for which they would like to have an audit performed. They can initiate audits on their own, and they can access reports and that type of thing. It's really a state-of-the-art database that we're very proud of. Additionally, we have Legal Anywhere, which is our working document repository, minutes from meetings, forums, and things like that. So all in all, we have a lot of different avenues by which we store and disseminate information. Again, I'd encourage anybody who might be interested in being involved in any of the working groups to reach out to Rx-360. Personally speaking, I can tell you that it's an absolutely excellent experience, and that I would recommend it for anybody who's interested. So with that finishes my slides. Lou, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great. Thanks an awful lot. And Alexis, I think we'll just go directly to the Q&A, so you can click slowly through these. But go ahead and if we have questions, please go ahead and introduce those, and raise your hand electronically, and let's go ahead and get into the discussion. Do we have a question or a comment that has been posed? Kristen, do you have any questions there, or are there any?
Yeah, we had one. The question was whether or not consultants are permitted to participate in working groups.
Brian, I'll give that to you, but I believe there's a fair degree of openness.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on the work effort, but you need to be an Rx-360 member to participate in most of the work groups. On a one-off basis, if there's a specific need of a work group to engage a consultant, we have done that. But in general, consultants are not allowed to engage in many of the work groups. And basically what we're trying to do there is protect the integrity of the work groups and avoid, any commercial issues, commercial sensitivity, as well as any antitrust issues. So there are exceptions, and the board and oversight committee will review those as they come up. But in general, we try to leave it to Rx-360 membership.
Have we got other questions?
Sorry, Lou, I was on mute. Yes, we have someone who's on the phone who's from Asia, the Asia-Pac region, and they were curious how they can access audit reports that we currently have on file.
So Ben, or?
Yeah, this is Ben. I'll go ahead and take that one. So, certainly if you have interest in obtaining audit reports, we would point you towards the Secretariat, and if you go to the Rx-360 org website, you'll find links there where you can get in contact with those folks. what they will do then is that they will let you know what audits are available depending on your interest, and then because when audits are licensed or shared, there has to be an agreement between the person requesting the audit and also the supplier who was audited and that type of thing. They'll go ahead and work through that, but it's really as simple as just reaching out to Rx-360 via the website, clicking the correct link, and then getting set up there. But it's a fairly simple process.
Great, thank you, Ben. We have about 4 other questions right now. The next is the question is, has Rx-360 encouraged involvement by patient advocacy groups?
So, Kristen, can you read the question again?
Absolutely. It says, has Rx-360 encouraged involvement by patient advocacy groups?
I would have to say definitely. So the main mechanism of engaging other patient safety advocacy groups is through the Observer program, which I think was mentioned. And you can see, if you look at that list of observers, there are a number of organizations that are really focused on patient safety advocacy. So yes, we encourage it, and we have a structure to work with those types of groups. If anybody else has comments, please feel free to add to that.
Great, thank you, Brian. We have another, we actually have 2 questions that really focus along the same lines, and that is, are Rx-360 audit reports fully recognized? One was by the FDA and governing bodies, and also the question was, are they accepted in replacement of their own audits and considered equivalent oversight?
Brian, do you want me to take that one?
Please.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, that's obviously a very important question. And obviously, if the answer was not positive, you know, the whole reason for Rx-360 to exist would, you know, part of it would collapse. So the answer is yes. Rx-360 has designed a third-party audit scheme that at every stage that we were building it, we discussed it with FDA and with EMA, and we made sure that every point that the regulators would be sensitive to was well addressed. So first and foremost, we have a clearance from the Justice Department in terms of antitrust law for everything that we do, especially in connection with audits. Secondly, the number one problem that the European regulators had is to make sure there was no conflict of interest between who is paying for the audit and who is making use of the audit. And that's been dealt with. So we have a package that's been very carefully developed to make sure the regulators bought into it completely. And I had the chance to be in a meeting with the inspectors working group at the EMA, and this question was put to them completely, and some of the issues that they raised were addressed. And I think the answer is that whether you're a QP or responsible for the vendor qualification program, having the audit report of an Rx-360 fills the legal requirement that you have in a growing number of countries, that you need to have an audit report to verify GMP of your API suppliers, you know, no older than 3 years.
This is Lou, and go ahead and go to the final slide. Just wanted to mention that there is the European conference coming up on the 29th of October. You can see that there, and you can find it on the website. I think we've reached the end of time here. I think that there is a survey that participants will be asked to fill out. We'd love to get your input, get your constructive comments. With that, I would like to thank the panelists, and I'd like to thank each of you who's joined us today to go ahead and get involved. It's fun. It's productive. Thanks, everybody.